Colleagues, Happy New Year and a very warm welcome to our first CGIAR all-staff webinar of 2022. For those of you who took time off, I hope you had restful breaks and good times with your friends and family. I'll start with some housekeeping. If you want to hear this session in Spanish, please use the interpretation button at the bottom of your screens. Today's session is also being recorded, and the recording will be made available on the internal CGIAR info point within the coming days for colleagues unable to attend. A summary of what we cover today will also be available on the info point and sent along in the next monthly newsletter. If you do have any technical issues during this webinar, please write to events@cgiar.org. We have 75 minutes today, so let's get started. First, unfortunately, Claudia is not feeling well, so she isn't able to join us today. I will be taking over her usual moderating duties, and I'm sure you'll join me in wishing Claudia a speedy recovery. I am joined by the rest of the executive management team, or EMT, as well as Barbara Wells, Global Director of Genetic Innovation, Fiona Bourdin-Farrell, Global Director of People and Culture, and Martin Kropf, Global Director for Resilient Agri-Food System, is also on hand to answer questions. Also joined by Nathan Birak, Campaign Manager, who will be joining me for the brand session. Now that affiliation to the new global or regional groups has progressed in collaboration with all of you, we want to talk about the next steps and what you can expect. We have three main topics to cover today. First, the new CGIAR operational structure has been defined in more detail. Elywn, Kundhavi, and Barbara will walk you through the design of the global and regional groups and the departments within them. A series of divisional webinars will also take place in the following weeks that will allow us to get into further details on that. Our second topic, to fill key positions in the new structure, we are launching an internal jobs portal for CGIAR people to view and apply for positions that they're interested in. Fiona will outline the process and answer questions about this. Tomorrow, she's leading additional all-staff sessions to cover the latest on job openings, the hiring process, and how to apply. Third, as part of the One CGIAR transition, we are rebranding our organization. That means a new name, a fresh look and feel. So at the end of our session, I'll be offering everyone an update on the rebranding, and we'll be asking for your input on key elements of the new brand. We've also set aside half an hour today to answer your questions. Some questions were submitted ahead of time, but we're also taking questions live at this event. So please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens to submit questions. And we're aware that not all questions are answered, but we will try and get to as many as we can, either live during the session or providing responses in the chat function. So without further ado, over to Elywn, Barbara, and Kundhavi to share details of the operational structure. And then Fiona will talk about the launch of the internal jobs portal. Elywn, please.
Thank you, Lottie. Okay, I'll say a few words on the general structure and then talk more about the institutional strategy and systems, and then hand over to my colleagues to talk about the other two divisions in a bit more detail. First, at the general level, look, colleagues, this is a really significant moment. It's a big milestone for us, and I think a real cause for celebration. We are now launching an operational structure with more detail that's been really worked through since we first put together the broad structure earlier last year, and we're really confident this can succeed. You may recall that the March Council last year endorsed a broad design around the operational structure. Then after some months, we went through a careful process of selection for a senior leadership team who then, once they took up those roles, helped us work through and test out some of those broad structural designs and develop a whole layer of detail around the departments within each group and the units within each department, that has enabled us to start putting together a large number of job descriptions with confidence that these are the jobs that we need in this operational structure. There's been hundreds of colleagues involved in this process, and we truly thank you. We believe this is a robust structure. We think it's exactly what we need to deliver the research and innovation strategy and the new initiatives that were so warmly welcomed by our system council recently, with good indications of funding. It creates that kind of integration, not just around the research, which is truly important, but around the way we support the research for our corporate services and our global engagement. And it's really, you know, the theory of change here is we want to integrate all the excellent capabilities that we have rather fragmented across CGIAR and redeploy those into an operational structure that enables us to go deeper and stronger on each issue. So let's just put up the slide just to recap on the broad macro structure, the high level structure that you will have seen already, colleagues, refined somewhat since previous versions, but broadly familiar around 3 divisions: institutional strategy and systems, research delivery and impact, and global engagement and innovation, with a number of global groups in each of those divisions. And within each of those global groups, a number of departments. That's where a lot more additional work has been done. And of course, we have the very important regional groups and impact area platforms really supporting this whole structure as well. So let me just say a couple of caveats about this. Any good organization is constantly refining itself, evolving its model, making improvements, learning by doing. And that will continue in CGIAR, but we believe that this structure can see us through a number of years without the need for a wholesale change of anything like the magnitude we're facing now. We believe this is a resilient model for us to essentially navigate the future of really an integrated set of problems that we're facing to transform our food, land and water systems. This is a visual organogram of the various units in this structure. It doesn't describe all the positions. Those will be shared as we unveil the jobs portal, and that's something that Fiona will be talking about. A couple of quick points on process. Fiona will describe the next major step here, which is filling key positions to lead these various global groups, departments, the units within each of those departments, and the regional groups and impact area platforms. Second point, there won't be a sudden change or one switch where we just switch from one system to another, where we switch from using essentially center-based decision-making structures to the operational structure to take operational decisions. This will be an incremental change, majority of which will be this year, but a number of elements of that transition will happen in 2023 and beyond as well. You will be informed every step of the way. Additionally, let me repeat that this is not a cost-cutting exercise. This is to set us up for growth. In line with what we've said all along, that this is about making better use of our excellent talent in CGIAR and building that talent, training ourselves. We will honor the duration in terms of existing employment contracts right through this process. So it's really important to state that. Let me say a couple of words about the institutional strategy and systems division. Look, could we go to the slide on that, Roland? Look, all 3 of these divisions are absolutely essential. If we don't get, for example, our HR functions right to build and operate one CGIAR, it won't work. We won't deliver the research. Same on our financial systems, our operations, our facilities management, our IT services, and of course, our governance and corporate affairs. So they're all incredibly important. I'm really excited about what these 4 groups can deliver. I won't go through each of them in detail, but what you see here is within each of the group, let's say people and culture, there are 4 departments, and in each of those departments, there are a number of units. For example, on people, strategy, planning, and policy, there are 4 units looking at standards and assurance, people analytics, strategic partners, etc. The philosophy behind these groups is to support the whole structure. It's to provide end-to-end services from the very local to the global, and to ensure there's an interconnection, to provide constant professional upgrading, to provide greater career opportunities. So, for example, an IT staff in a unit in a center now would have the ability, for example, if they have a strong interest in, let's say, IT security, an issue very much on our minds right now, to join the unit on IT security, and to actually deploy their interest across the whole of CGIAR, which enables the ability to go deeper into an issue than we're ever able to when we're working in a smaller unit around one center. So it really enables us to go deeper and to be able to have what we believe will be world-class services to build on the great people we've got. So with that, let me turn to my science group director colleagues, important essential partners in all of this. Over to Barbara and Martin. Welcome to Barbara.
Well, thanks, Elywn, and happy to be with all of you today and to get into some detail on the structure of our research delivery. I should mention, as you know, that my colleague Martin Croft is on the call, on the panel here, and he'll be happy to answer any questions. And in the earlier panel this morning, Martin was together with Yo Swinen. So as a team, we're covering both of these sessions today. The Research and Delivery and Impact Division brings together CGIAR's science capabilities into 3 science groups: genetic innovation, resilient agri-food systems, and system transformation. We also have 5 impact area platforms that cross-cut across all 3 of the science groups. We also have the project coordination and portfolio performance hubs that also cut across the research areas. The science groups will deliver all of the research for all of the CGIAR, and I won't attempt to cover the departments and sub-departments in each science group, because we do want to leave time for questions, but also want to make sure that in the town hall that we're planning with the research delivery and impact town hall on the 27th, that we have a chance to get into a little more detail. So we'll be getting into a little more depth next week together with Claudia. And I wanted to emphasize that these groups are not silos. People will work together. They are very matrix organizations on initiatives and bilaterally funded projects. And there are built-in features in the structures to strengthen the linkages of the collaboration. And this, of course, is where the impact area platforms come in, designed to help us maximize our contributions to sustainable development goals and keep us focused on delivering measurable results across the 5 impact areas in our 2030 strategy. In the Research Coordination and Performance Hub, we'll focus on developing standards, guiding principles and tools, as well as coordinating and finance and facilitating processes across the science groups. The project coordination side will build expertise and ensure effective utilization and delivery across all stages of the project lifecycle, while ensuring compliance with 1CG standards and policies and with the requirements of our funders. The portfolio performance side of the hub will develop actionable insights to support investment decisions, maintain 1CGIAR's performance and results systems and tools, and deliver integrated portfolio reporting. Now, a question that has come up by many of you, which is, how does this structure actually relate to the new portfolio of initiatives? And as we've tended to mention and respond to that question, is that the initiatives will be implemented through the new structure. But given the urgency of launching the first set of initiatives, which were approved in principle by the System Council at their meeting in December, the launching of the first set of the initiatives became absolutely urgent. And so we therefore developed a system whereby we developed an interim appointment of the initiative leads and co-leads and work package leaders to be extended for a 6-month period beginning of the 1st of January, so that we could in fact begin to start right away on implementing the first 19 initiatives while the ISDC is going through and reviewing the next set of initiatives. So as we prepare to advertise senior positions in the science groups, those who hold roles as interim leads or co-leads and work package leaders, like any other CGIAR colleagues, will be eligible to and encouraged to apply for science group positions that interest them. We expect that some cases, those senior leadership positions in the science groups may also serve the role as initiative leaders or core leaders or work package leaders. They are certainly not mutually exclusive. So with that, I'll hand it over to Kundhavi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Colleagues, this is a great opportunity to share with you all the operating structure. It's a very critical step forward in this transition year. While I'm happy to share some of our the thinking on the operating structure, but also keep in mind that the structure we are sharing with you today does not reflect the entire scope of everyone's work. You're all familiar with the 3 main division: the Global Engagement Innovation, the Research Delivery and Impact, and the ISNS. And within that, we have groups, and what you will hear today is our thinking in the operating structure involving the groups within GNI. I'll briefly speak to you about the overall key objectives of the GNI and the structures within. As you know, it's the part of the CGIAR that leads CGIAR engagement with external partners and stakeholders. It involves meeting our funding goals. It involves global advocacy platforms and amplifying CGIAR's messages, mandates globally. We also want to expand and deepen our engagement with partners, and more specifically also transform our engagement with country and regional stakeholders so that we are able to have a bigger impact. Now, the proposed operational structure, as you see here, you have the 3 global groups and also the 6 regional groups. In some cases, these will build and bring together the functions that are already well established, particularly in the area of resource mobilization and communication. But there are some areas that are going to be doing a different way of doing business, particularly involving the regions and countries. And also partnership, which is heart of our new research and innovation strategy. I will briefly highlight, as Barbara did, on some of the key features of the operating structure for GNI. First is the innovative finance and resource mobilization. Now, this group will be responsible for raising more funding. You all have heard about our goal of 2 billion annually by 2030. We were very successful, at least as a first step towards that, in getting the pooled funding to support our 3-year investment plan. And that's just the beginning. The other part of our overall funding is also relating to diversifying our funding sources. We have talked about the different action areas, being private sector, the IFIs, Green Climate Fund, foundations, emerging markets. So a number of other sources that CGIAR has not really tapped into, we'll be looking at how best to really diversify our funding sources. Similarly, all of that to put in place very sustainable funding to support our ambitious strategy. And that is all as a part of the Innovative Finance and Resource Mobilization Group. The other group is the Communication and Outreach Group. This will amplify CGIAR's voice and external engagement and also more effective communication internally. And what we will really want to see is this communication to facilitate the adoption of research outputs. On the science side of it, how do we really effectively communicate the work and our outputs coming from the CGIAR science? This group will also lead the communication strategy, develop communication frameworks to bring about more internal consistency across the board. But one area that will be an exciting work coming from this communication team is the rebranding. I don't want to go into too much depth on that because we have a very dedicated session within this. We'll hear from Lotte on that. And this is another important responsibility of this group. The third within the global groups in GNI is the Partnership and Advocacy Group. This will provide a strategic overview in terms of our partnership and engagement in high-level platforms and dialogues and political processes. We already are in the process of developing the engagement framework and partnership strategy, which will be guiding the entire CGIAR systems, and that is part of this group's work. And certainly in terms of market intelligence and also leading targeted engagement on topics such as technology and transfer and capacity building, which is an enormous topic of importance from several of our country partners. This is also an important area of work of this Partnership and Advocacy Group. And again, I also wanted to talk briefly about the regional groups. This will be responsible for bringing together all CGIAR work on the ground at the country level and the regional level. The regions, the regional directors are the key leaders on the ground representing CGIAR. They will also ensure that we are bringing together entire coordination in the dialogue with the countries. Also ensuring coordination internally in resource mobilization, partnership, all aspects of it at the country and regional level is the core function of the regions and groups. This is again a new part of our work and something that we are really excited through the regions and country frameworks to see that. We will also see as part of that regional frameworks and country frameworks that help us to prioritize our key work in the respective countries that CGIAR will be present. I'll just stop there. Again, we will have, this is just a quick overview. We'll have opportunity to go a little bit deeper in our conversation that is planned next week, where we can talk a little bit more in terms of what that operating structure within each of the groups in GNI will be. With that, let me now pass this on to Fiona.
Great, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, and I hope you and your families are all safe and well. It's great to be with you today to share information on the launch of the next phases of our senior appointments process, now that we have our new operational structure. I'm going to be quite brief today, just taking us through the process at a very high level. But tomorrow we have 2 dedicated people and culture webinars specifically aiming to take you through this in much more detail. So do please try and join us for one of those people and culture webinars. The invitations to those sessions should be in your email inbox. So hopefully what you're seeing up on the screen right now is some information about the phases and where we are in the appointments. You will see that we're moving to the next phase of the appointment to the new operating structure, covering the 2 yellow boxes numbered 3 and 4. These phases cover roles reporting directly to global and regional directors, existing senior directors, and of course our EMT. And what we're calling this phase is phase 3. And then the appointment of direct reports of these phase 3 appointees is what we're calling phase 4. We've already completed those steps in the green boxes, phases 1 and 2. And once we complete phases 3 and 4, then we'll move on to what we hope will be the final phase, which is phase 5. And that's shown in the orange box on the right-hand side. If we go to the next slide, at the top of this slide, you'll see that we've now finalized our operating structure. We've filled our leadership roles, and the process of developing position, job descriptions and defining job levels has now been completed for many jobs, with many more underway. You'll then see that all phase 3 and 4 positions will be posted internally on an internal job portal on a rolling basis from tomorrow onwards, with each position being open for internal applications for a minimum of 2 weeks. Wherever possible, phase 4 jobs will be advertised at the same time or very soon after phase 3 jobs, so that all staff can have a really clear picture of the senior positions that are available to us all. If we go to the next slide, please. What we're showing here is that once applications close, selection panels will review the internal candidate pool and decide whether to proceed with the internal selection process or to advertise externally. This decision will depend on whether the minimum criteria have been met by internal candidates, and more details on which you can find in the materials that you will receive by email later today after our webinars have finished. And in anticipation of a question on what exactly is an internal candidate, you'll find a really clear definition in those materials. All phase 3 and 4 selection panels will be mainly comprised of external panel members, in addition to, of course, our internal hiring managers. And that's deliberate. It's deliberate to mitigate any risk of unconscious bias and really try to work very hard to keep the process fully transparent, fair and clear. And then finally, the selection panels will advise the hiring manager in making their decision. And once that decision is made, the hiring manager will reach out to our EMT to get approval for appointment to these senior roles. I'm very happy to say that the entire process will be guided by the inclusive recruitment guide that was prepared by our gender diversity and inclusion colleagues to make sure that we're fully aligned with the commitment to advance equity, diversity and inclusion in our global workplaces. Now, I know I have moved very fast through all of these details, but time is short and I really wanted to make sure that we got this essential information out today. I would like to personally thank all those who have given their extremely valuable time and commitment to help reach this important and exciting stage. In particular, the People and Culture colleagues, the many hundreds of people who've taken part in the working groups, as Elywn has already mentioned, and the communities of practice sessions, all the colleagues in the leadership team and their teams, digital services, communications, legal, and all those other great colleagues that we're fortunate enough to work alongside in moving this process through. Finally, I really would like to thank you, all the colleagues online, for your patience and your continued commitment as we continue on this complex change journey together. Now, once today's webinars are completed, we will be launching this exciting process early tomorrow morning. We want to make sure you have all the information you need. So all CGIAR staff will soon receive an email with a link to the internal jobs platform on the info point, as well as a frequently asked questions document, which we hope answers the majority of your questions, and of course a detailed infographic which explains the process in detail as well. So I encourage you to please look out for the email that will have links to all this information you need. And in anticipation that even though we've done our very best to try to answer all your questions through the FAQ, we know that there will still be many questions. So I invite you to please attend the People and Culture webinars tomorrow where we'll go into much more detail on the job application process, and we'll even give you a demonstration of how to use the online application. So as time is short, I'll stop right there and say thank you and hand you straight back to Lottie. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona, and others for those concise overviews. Now we're going to move to questions and answers. Please do keep the questions coming through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. Some questions are being answered directly, so you just need to click on the answered tabs to see the responses, but we might cover some of those here as well. Let's go to the first question, and this was submitted in advance, and this one's for Fiona. It's not clear who will keep his or her position in the new structure and which positions will be open for competition. People came to where they are through competition. Will they need to apply again? And what happens if someone applies for a position and doesn't get it? Fiona, please.
Thanks so much. It's a really detailed kind of multi-level question, and it's something we also tried to cover it this morning in the early webinar. So let me just jump in and try and answer it as directly and as clearly as I can. To go back to the message that our EMT colleagues gave throughout not only previous webinars, but also again today, our goal is absolutely to keep and retain CGIAR's talented people and to make sure that they are put in positions where they can best use their knowledge and skills in the new structure. This is really why the appointments process has been designed to ensure that all the roles are opened up internally first, to make sure that we get the best talent into those positions to deliver on the mandate. Now, only if we're unable to fill those roles internally will the process move to external candidates. In the email that you will receive, as I said earlier, there is a detailed definition of internal candidate, which you'll see is quite inclusive. And we've done that deliberately to recognize the very many different ways that people work on the mandate to deliver in CGIAR. Now, we now have a new structure and the roles in it are also new. A key principle in this process has really been around fairness and transparency. We really must give everybody the opportunity to express interest, showcase their skills, and if they meet the requirements, to apply. So all positions in phases 3 and 4, those are, remember, are the senior positions, they will be openly published. And this will help you to assess the number of senior positions you may be qualified for and interested in. And again, we strongly encourage you to apply for them. When you apply for individual posted senior positions, you'll also have the option to express interest in other positions. So in other words, there's no quota on how many positions you can apply for. You have multiple options. You're encouraged to apply for as many positions as you feel you're suitably qualified for and interested in. Expressing interest in other positions also helps selection panels be fully aware of your interests and your skills. The phase 3 and 4 appointments process is open to all potential candidates who can apply or eligible to apply. And I'd just like to answer a question that has come up previously. I'd like to confirm that the group you have been affiliated to does not affect your ability to apply to posts. So in other words, if you have been affiliated to one group, that doesn't mean that you can only apply for jobs in that group. You're strongly encouraged to apply for any role and all roles that you're interested in and qualified for. So now just coming to that very last part of your multi-layered question, Lottie. If you apply for a senior position and you're not selected, what are the options? Well, you have a number of options. The first thing you may choose to do is to apply for another phase 3 or phase 4 position. Remember, there are no limits on how many you can apply for. Or you may be invited to take up a 1 CGIAR interim senior assignment. There are likely to be a number of such interim assignments to deliver critical work in a whole range of key priority areas, and for which we will need highly qualified, experienced individuals to bring their expertise to solving those problems. Also, you may be eligible for and assigned to a role in that next appointment phase, phase 5, which will begin as soon as phase 3 and phase 4 are well underway. So once again, our goal in phase 5 is really to minimize the number of positions which are opened up for recruitment, and instead to map people and their expertise to roles. This will mean that for many people, perhaps your role and maybe even your manager might not change at all. And for some people, this might mean some changes to align with the new structure, but it will be a very gradual and consultative process to ensure there's no interruption to the important work that we deliver. So phase 5 will likely take the rest of 2022 and in some cases into 2023 to fully complete that bringing together of teams. So everything that I've just given in that answer is described in detail in the FAQ document that you will receive, and we look forward to going through it in more detail tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. And now let's direct one to Martin. This question is from Isabel Boltonweck, and the question is: the program management staff are not in the same group as the researchers. What is the rationale? We are working together daily. Martin, please.
Yeah, that was the the original process, but in discussion with the science group directors, it was decided basically that there will be this coordination project and program coordination and performance unit. It is relatively small because that's where the processes are designed, the standards, the KPIs, the procedures. So what's basically a lot of people in Sonia's team right now are doing, and that the project managers and program managers for the higher level thing, that they keep working. I try to explain it on text, but explaining these things is more difficult on paper. But basically that they follow the PI, project principal investigator, the project leader, or the head of the department in the affiliation process. We are working on how to do it, so that information will come later to those people, because we have something like about 350 project managers, and it's important that most of them are directly reporting to the science leader in that group. I hope that's clear.
Great, thank you, Martin. And now I'm going to direct the next one to Kundhavi. Kundhavi, what is the link between the divisions, departments, and the regional groups, which I think gets to kind of the relationship and the role of with the regional groups? Kundhavi, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lotte. Again, colleagues, I did mention that the regions and countries is this new approach that we are bringing for having that deeper engagement and alignment to country priorities, and also for us to be scaling up impact through stronger partnership on the ground. So in that sense, we have often talked to you about the key functions of the regional directors and the country representatives on the ground, being representation and relationship management, strategic presence and coordinated action, intelligence and knowledge sharing, and how do we align with demand, resource mobilization, communication, partnership coordination. And to help support them, we are talking about the regional engagement lead, a senior person, and another person who is a policy person supporting the regional directors. And then the other reporting arrangement we are talking about are different business models at the country level, but there are country managers and cluster managers. So they have a very small team of people. However, when you're looking at regions and countries, there are big presence of CGIAR teams. We are talking about the science teams, ISNS teams, all being present there. They may not be reporting to the regional director, the country manager, whoever is leading in terms of the one CG on the ground, but they are all working cohesively. What does that really mean? That we as a group can be working together is really strong, cohesive, coordinated, even if we are not reporting directly to the regional director, country manager on the ground, because if that's the regional presence, but we are working as one team. Now, this is not a model that is already many organizations have embraced it, both in global international organizations as well as private sector. So it's something new for CGIAR, but that is already many organizations are practicing it. So in a sense, this, if we kind of get ourselves to look at the larger picture, what we are trying to achieve, and the whole thing is to work together as a team. And the new emphasis we have put on culture, cooperation, and working together, I think we can get there as a team, that the big ambition we have laid out in the strategy is possible. So that's where we see the regions being a small team, but you have a big presence of CGIAR as a whole and how they would be working very coordinated on the ground. Hope that was helpful.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Kundhavi. The next one I will direct to Elywn, and this one comes from Simone Steger, who submitted it through the chat. Thank you for doing that, Simone. Elywn, what are your ideas to date to avoid those divisions becoming silos? And I think we often get a lot of questions about how we work together if we're not in the same group or the same location. So perhaps you can sort of address that generally. Thank you, Elywn.
Yeah, great question. So I'm picking up a number of questions around the legitimate fear of new silo creation, right? And look at where we're coming from. We despite all our amazing work and best intentions, CGIAR is an incredibly fragmented, siloed partnership. And we're trying to consolidate and bring it together into a far less siloed structure. For managerial purposes, you do need divisions, you need to have reporting lines. So it's a really fair question, is how do we avoid that? There's lots of lines of response here. There's the fact that we have a 3-person EMT that functions really well together. We have the 3 science group directors who are working very closely as a team. We have the senior leadership team that finally got to meet in person at the later last year. It might be a little difficult to do it next month as planned, but that's really bonding as a group. We need to develop key performance indicators and job descriptions going forward, where we actually seek feedback from our colleagues and really inculcate a strong culture of teamwork. And that's really the fundamental here. So that'll be my point. This is a risk that we need to manage. The second set of questions I saw, I think have actually somewhat been addressed already, and it's an understandable concern that when we actually have groups that have these globally integrated reporting lines, how are people going to carry on working together? Isabel asked it around project support and communications. And Noreen asked it about finance and resource mobilization. Really good points and legitimate concerns. The business model here that I should have mentioned is also that the fundament of how ISNS will operate is that we can have individuals, let's say a comms professional, right, who is working and sitting with a science group and a number of scientists in a CGIAR campus, an entity somewhere in the world, who is deeply involved in their work, but also involved in a global group, so that we can actually coordinate key messages and work on issues that cut across, like climate change, that are not owned and don't sit in any one of those CGIAR campuses or even any one science group. So we can do both better. This model is not about taking individuals away from the teams that they work in. It's about creating well-functioning teams. And the whole basis of this model is to put people together. That includes also finance, the finance team, and my last point on this is, in some cases, physical proximity in the way we work together is essential. We've got to have facilities managers in post locally. On some other services like IT, some elements of IT support, we can have people sitting regionally, serving a certain time zone, also working globally. So you'll hear much more about this next week in the division by division meetings about how we will be putting teams together, and that the fact that individuals will be in a different reporting line in no way diminishes their abilities to work in a team, and in many respects enhances it. Back to you, Lottie.
Great, thank you, Elywn. We have one for Martin. I'll direct it to Martin, and this one's from Zoe Campbell. So Martin, what is the role of projects that are not within the initiatives? Are researchers expected to have at least some time within an initiative, or could all of their time be on other projects? How might this change as we go forward?
That's a very important question. We have to realize when we are getting the amount of funds that we think we will get, so soon the donors indicated that they will do it, but we are looking now where it's exactly going. Then of course it's not possible that everybody is involved in the initiatives, right? Still we have a lot of bilaterals, and even Windows 3 projects keep on going, and also that are coming in. So it's a whole portfolio, and the initiatives hopefully will become bigger, so that we have more pooled funding, so that not everybody has to run for small projects everywhere to keep funding themselves. But that's a stepwise project. Like Kundhavi said, the target is hopefully 2 billion. Jürgen Vogel has said that 5 years ago. Bill Gates has said it several times, but still we have to realize it, and we can realize it with good initiatives and good projects. So step by step, the initiatives will grow, and bilaterals by the donors will be linked to pooled funding initiatives. So, but still, it's not essential for everybody to be in there. Of course, people can also work on huge other big projects that are still not yet into pooled funding, and that's not a problem. We have also, and our scientists and people on the ground are still looking with donors for specific bilaterals on things, but more and more we will try to have a coherent set of projects linked with our strategy. Not that we just do projects because we need money, but that we really keep having more focus, more impact together, and larger projects. Because in my opinion, the initiatives are still too small as we plan them as now. So step by step, we have to build it up. We try, Jo, Barbara, and I, together, not to have silos, but build it up together in a decent way, and involve everybody, and especially make it demand-driven. So the triangulation is super important, demand-driven. What are the big challenges? What do stakeholders need? The link with the stakeholders, like what Kundhavi said about the regional directors, is super important. But also, what are our capacities and our partners' capacities, so that we can really together work on this? And then, what are the funders willing to fund? That's also why we look also for new funding from completely new sources. And that's, of course, also the team of Van Lucas working on. So there's a whole lot of things going on, but it's not essential that people are only working in initiatives. That's impossible, because it's only 30% of the money at the moment. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Martin. We do note that there is a question from Fabrice de Klerk about branding, and how do you recommend that we should anticipate communicating our affiliations, CGIAR Kali, CGIAR Addis, etc., in both our public and professional communications? Is the expectation over the next 12 months that center names become obsolete and are replaced by CGIAR location affiliation? So I'm not going to direct that to anyone, because I hope that will at least in part be answered by our branding session. So I think we'll take a final question, and this one directed to Barbara or to Martin, if you prefer, Martin. How and when will the selection of initiative leads and work package leads be carried out? Similarly, when will the address book of interim initiative and work package leads be made available to facilitate networking and sharing of ideas and knowledge?
Will you take it, Barbara?
Yeah, I'll take it, and then you can add to it, Martin. A very important question, because as you know, we're in the position right now where we have appointed the initiative leads and co-leads in interim positions for the next 6 months. That said, there are also extremely qualified individuals who know the initiatives perhaps better than anyone else. So it was a very good position to name them to, along with the work package leaders. Now, in the process of recruiting for the senior the senior leaders that then report, the phase 3, phase 4 leaders, it's very possible that some of those positions might actually be initiative leaders. So I think, this is something that will be evolving over the next few months. But I would say that over the next few months, we'll also be making decisions that would say these individuals need to continue to lead these initiatives, or based on how they evolve over the next few months, we may be opening those positions to give others an opportunity to apply for them. Martin, would you add anything else?
Yeah, no, and we also can say here that we super appreciate the hard work that all the initiative leads have been doing, right? So we are serious here, but we need to see also what kind of processes are playing a role. That's why we directly said, let's keep on working for 6 months with them to get the start up. So we will see that we have a decent process. But of course, it's super recognized that many of the IDT leads at the moment are doing a very good job. And we assume that they can also run a project, right? Because designing an initiative is something else than running an initiative. But so far, we are pretty confident that we have a very good team. And we are very happy that most of them, or all of them, I think, will work with us to get the initiatives off the ground, induction. And so that basically in 6 months from now, we have the whole portfolio running in the first batch and the second batch. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin and Barbara. And we're going to wrap up the Q&A now, but just to let you know, we are seeing a lot more interesting questions. There's one on digital services, which Khulud is going to write a response in the Q&A. So please keep an eye on the Q&A for some more responses. And a reminder that there will be lots more opportunities in the coming days and weeks to raise questions and get answers, starting with Fiona's sessions tomorrow and the upcoming divisional webinars. Now we're heading into the final section of today's event, and it's time to focus on brand. So I'm really excited to be able to update you on where we are with the CGIAR rebrand, and also that we have this opportunity to get your input into the shortlist of names. CGIAR's success depends in part on how well we engage and interact with our audiences. Our brand is key to that. At the most fundamental level, it helps us define who we are and what we do. But our new brand should also reflect and enhance our global influence, engender trust in our scientific expertise and impact, and boost our ability to attract funding and engage partners. The rebranding is also an important part of the One CGIAR transition. We have a new mission, a bold vision, and ambitious goals. Our new brand will, we hope, reflect and support all of those things. It will help us as we communicate our science and impact to audiences around the world in strategic, compelling, and innovative ways. So let's take a look at what we're developing. A brand identity is more than just a name. The pillars of a brand include an organization's values and purpose. There are also different elements to the identity, the name, the logo, and the tagline, and they all have to work together. Then there's the brand architecture. We know that our center brands hold a great deal of value. It will reassure some of you here that we spent a lot of time working out how the new brand will work with center brands. We want the new brand to retain and build on the tremendous value of those center brands. We'll also need to develop a compelling and accessible narrative. We've learned a lot about audience preferences along the way. So we'll take a look at the next slide. One of the things that we've learned early on is that no single name resonates with everyone. For that reason, we wanted our process for choosing names to be as rigorous and robust as possible. Other takeaways include that there is no appetite for creative names or short, catchy words. Gravitas and trust proved to be more appealing. We learned that people trust UN-like agencies. Agriculture and research carry weight with our audiences. A good name needs a good acronym or abbreviation, and a name has to work in multiple languages. So if a name that you liked previously, you're not seeing on the shortlist, it's possible that it didn't work in French or Spanish or another language that we considered. There was also a strong preference for food systems, but not all audiences know the term, so we have to address that. Environment appealed to some audiences, but others felt it was misleading. And finally, we learned that a lot of good names are already taken. So a lot of work got us to this point. Over a year, we created, meditated, discussed, and debated at least 200 names, over 30 taglines, and 8 visual identities. We conducted multiple stakeholder consultations, including a previous all-staff survey. We worked with global branding agencies, including MNC Saatchi, on creative concepts. We held many validation meetings with EMT, brainstormed with board members, and conducted external polling surveys. And that's kind of how we felt at the end of last year. But the work doesn't stop here. The shortlist you'll see today will undergo robust testing, including external testing in 6 countries and 4 languages. In-depth interviews will be held with key external stakeholders, and we'll continue to consult internally as we're doing today. I should say that this shortlist is just a starting point, and the names, taglines, and visual identities will continue to evolve. On the current timeline, which, as we know, can be flexible and not set in stone, we would expect to have the final name ready around April, after which we will begin a phased launch. And with that context, I will invite Nathan Birak to introduce the shortlisted names before we invite you to provide input. Nathan, please.
Thank you, Lottie, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to show you 4 names, 4 taglines, and 4 visual identities. The inspiration behind these is food, land, and water system, but also science. And we'll ask you to judge each element on their own. So we've paired them for the purpose of this presentation, but the pairing can be changed later, so we can change, specific logo to go with another name. These concepts are really early draft, and we will use the result of the consultation of the coming weeks to build on them. So it's important you try to judge them on their potential and not necessarily what the face value, what you can see on the screen. So without further ado, let's go into the first one. So the first visual identities, we call it Molecule Plus. The inspiration is our alliance, catalyzing change, the fact that we are greater than the sum of our parts. And I present to you the Food System Science Organization. Innovation, impact, people. L'Organisation scientifique pour les systèmes alimentaires, innovation, impact, humanité. La Organización Científica para los Sistemas Alimentarios. Innovación, impacto, personas. This is how it would look on an image, and more interestingly, how it would work with center brands. So FSSO, the acronym, and you can see as the logo acts like a plus sign as well. That's the second option. We call it the Venn diagram option. So the symbolism here is the power of our scientific alliance. And I give to you the Coalition for Global Food Systems, Innovation and Impact for People and the Planet. La Coalition pour les Systèmes Alimentaires Mondiaux, Innovation et Impact pour l'Humanité et la Planète. La Coalición para los Sistemas Alimentarios Mundiales, Innovación e Impacto para las Personas y el Planeta. This is how it would look on an image, and again, coupled with center brands. And here the acronym CGFS would allow us to retain the short term that we currently use, the CG. The third option that we nicknamed the Lotus. So overlaps and connection evoke nature's shapes and combined power of the alliance. The World Agricultural Research Organization, transforming food, land and water systems. L'Organisation mondiale pour la recherche agricole, transformation des systèmes alimentaires terrestres et aquatiques. La Organización Mundial para la Investigación Agrícola, transformación de los sistemas alimentarios terrestres y hídricos. This is how it would look on an image. And again, paired with center brand. And this one, instead of using an acronym, we'll just call it World Ag. Finally, a more abstract creative direction here to give people a sense of optimism and potential for the future. The Organization for Food and Environmental Sciences, Innovative Systems, Sustainable Future. L'Organisation pour les sciences de l'alimentation et de l'environnement, Système innovant, avenir durable. La Organización para las Ciencias de la Alimentación y del Medio Ambiente, Sistemas Nuevos, Futuro Sostenible. This is how it would look on an image. And then again, working as a part of the urban architecture with a center brand. And the acronym here is OFES. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to take them all in. Here they are next to UN agencies, next to our peers. So if you just want to look at them again before we move into the questions. Should we go to the questions? Right. So you can go onto menti.com and enter the code that you see on the screen. You can also scan the QR code or click on the link that I just put in the chat. And the first question is about names. We'll ask you to rank the names in order of preference, but bearing in mind our testing criteria. So we're looking to have global influence, for trust in our scientific expertise and ability to have an impact, and our ability to attract funding and engage partners. So we'll get a minute for people to take the survey. Okay, should we move to question 2? Great. So the second question is about taglines. So it's a different code. And I put the link in the chat as well. So this time, it's but the tagline, same testing criteria, so innovation, impact, people, transforming food, land, and water systems, innovative systems, sustainable future, innovation and impact for people and the planet. Okay, let's move to question 3. So again, the link is in the chat. So this time we're asking you to rank the visual identities. Because of Menti, we couldn't put any image on the survey. So we gave the icons a little nickname. So you have the lotus, optimism, molecule plus, and the Venn diagram.
While people are continuing to vote for that third question, I will reiterate that this survey is one of many inputs that we will be using during our testing phase. So when we show your results of this survey, please don't be upset if your favorite name doesn't make number 1 or logo. This is one of many inputs. We will be testing these options with a number of groups, and all of the elements will continue to evolve. These are very much early drafts of all of these things, especially the visual identities. So please don't be upset if your favorite doesn't get the top slot. So I think we're, yeah, go ahead.
We're done, yeah, over to you.
Great, thank you, Nathan. So I think we're going to be able to bring up the results very soon. We can see that In first place on the names is World Agricultural Research Organization, or World Ag. Second is Coalition for Global Food Systems, CGFS. Third, Food System Science Organization, or FSSO. And fourth, Organization for Food and Environmental Sciences, of OFES. So let's bring up the taglines. Innovation and impact for people and the planet. Innovative systems, sustainable future. Transforming land, food, land, and water systems. Innovation, impact, people. And finally, not forgetting the logos or visual identities. We have the lotus, the molecules, the Venn diagram, and optimism. Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much, colleagues, for your input. And I hope you're all as excited as we are about the new name and fresh feel for our organization. And we will, of course, keep you updated and informed about the rebranding as it progresses. And now, in the last few minutes of our webinar, let's close with a final quick poll. So if we could bring up the question and the link and the QR code. The question is, what wasn't covered today in the webinar that you wished we had covered? So go to menti.com and use the code 9614583. There's also a link shared in the chat. And as the results come in, I would like to thank each one of you for joining us today and for your excellent questions and continued engagement as the transition progresses. You will be receiving a short survey to provide your feedback on this webinar, and we really appreciate you taking the less than 5 minutes it takes to complete it. We do use the surveys to adapt these webinars to your needs, so all inputs are gratefully received. As a reminder, a recording of this session will be made available on InfoPoint and CGIAR in the coming days, as well as a short summary of what was covered. Now, let's see if we can bring up some of the results to that question. Flexible working location, work-life balance, budget. The meeting was comprehensive. Thank you for that feedback. Funding confirmation for the initiatives. So lots of great questions, and do please join the upcoming sessions, and you'll have lots more opportunities to address many of those topics, and we will take them on board for future webinars. So thank you very much for taking part in this first staff webinar of 2022. We've started the year with some important steps forward, and we should now be celebrating this work of so many and CGIAR's future prospects. So thank you very much, and I wish you a wonderful day and a good rest of the week. Thank you.